Okay, Simon, I think it's ready to
We're good.
go. Yep.
Great. Well, thanks first of all, everybody, for attending this morning's WMS webinar for warehouse management within Power BI. In this next 30 minutes, we're going to look at how Hopton has developed a WMS system built on Power BI based upon ERP data. We've got four main topics to go through. One, the problems that we see faced by warehouses generally, how we can help, how an existing client of ours makes use of the solution, and what's the timeline for implementation. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please put them in the chat and we'll get to as many of those as we can throughout the session. So what do we see when we're working with our clients in terms of problems with warehouses that we can help to overcome? Generally, inaccurate inventory information and poor management of stock is a key problem that we encounter. Redundant processes and unnecessary procedures, mainly because of inaccurate information and poor inventory management. Procedures are put in place to manage things that could otherwise be dealt with better. Poor warehouse layout and planning. So that's not necessarily the layout of the warehouse itself, but is more about where stock is and how stock is managed and controlled and where it lives and so on. And seasonality of demand and not being prepared for it. Now, that could either be because of seasonal stock, or it could be because of large incoming deliveries or large orders going out. And that obviously applies pressure and puts pressure on warehouses. And finally, part of all of the above really is the labour costs that are involved in managing this and the excess labour costs in dealing with the issues that you get. So what will we show you today? So today is absolutely a lightning tour as to what we have built within Power BI using the technology that we've got. But what you'll see is how by managing your warehouse more effectively using our tool, you can fulfill more orders quicker by maximizing the use of warehouse space. So that's in the likes of assigning the best bin locations for the stock based upon peak demand and turnover. In other words, making sure the fast moving stock is where it needs to be and the slow where it doesn't. Through all of this, we can work with you to increase your pick efficiency and accuracy and reduce errors and delays. And zero in on quarantine or quality related stock issues. So we can do that through visibility of stock problems, but also making sure that quarantine stock is kept out of the way to avoid it being picked. So far, what have we achieved with our customers? One quote, using Hopton WMS saves 20% of time per week. In essence, one person from the warehouse, because we're making sure that the important stock that's fast moving is kept together. So let's dig in. So the way that we've built our Power BI solutions is really so that users can have the ability to learn without having to go through complex training and so on. So we've got two options here: don't need any help or do need help. If we require help, what we get is simple enough how-tos, and these can be enabled or disabled at any point. We'll just quickly go through these, and this is really telling the user what is on the screen. So then once we've done, first thing is this can be used on any device, tablet, desktop, mobile even. Obviously, it depends what your mobile is, but this isn't limited to being used simply in an office environment. And you can see there, I'm moving this around with my mouse, but I could easily be using this around with my finger on a touchpad or a screen. So what can we see straight off? First of all, we can see what our warehouse looks like, and we'll talk about how we work with you or your clients to map their warehouse in exactly the same way, and we'll talk about that a bit later. First of all, I can see what locations are in use. I can see utilization, I can see how many products are in quarantine, and I can see the degree to which my warehouse is optimized. I've also got a series of selections down here, and we'll look at these in a quick second. But before I do, here we have details of goods in. So this is in the past, and then here's in the future. There's two ways we do that. We either do that taking information from your purchase orders, so we know when goods are coming in and we display that. Or in the likes of quarantine, we don't know when we're going to get stock that needs to go into quarantine. So what we do is use AI to forecast that based upon previous history. You can see there's quite a bit of a gap between the middle and the max and the min. And of course, the more data we have, the more accurate that'll become. So what else have we got? Well, if I just start here, perhaps I want to know by product group, and maybe I'm going to click on a particular product group, and straight away things are changing on the screen. So I can see exactly where my stock is. I can find every bit of it in the warehouse, and probably the first thing to know is it's not massively well utilized or optimized. So, okay, that's one thing. What I could start to do if I wanted to is now say, well, let's look at what is optimized or not optimized. So how are we doing that? Well, in this example, what we're doing is saying take all the stock movements, first of all, take all the stock movements, find fast moving stock, and that's the top maybe 20%, 30% of stock movements. Find the low moving stock, the bottom 30 or 40, ignore the middle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tell the system where your pick faces are and where you expect fast moving stock to live and slow moving stock to live. What that allows us to do is say we just want to look at all our fast moving stock in the warehouse, not by that product, by all products now. But we actually want to see where it's not optimized. In other words, where it's not in the right places. So you can guess just by looking at this that these 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D, E, I've decided these are fast moving stock areas. So everything that's not optimized is fast moving stock that isn't near my pick faces. So what can you do from there? Well, simply, we've now got a list of all the things that are in effect in the wrong places. If you wanted, a next step on from this is to use machine learning to say, this bin here needs to go in this bin there. But in this example, we're not looking at that. In this example, what we're going to do is give the user the ability to export this to Excel if they want and do something about it. One of the things we say at Hopton is we provide the data in order to allow you to make those decisions. So you can take this information and act upon it. Now, as well as that, we might also want to know specifically what's in a bin. So if I was to pick one specific bin location, that's a little bit trippy. One specific bin location, I can find out exactly what's in that bin: product, product group, supplier, batch number, serial number if I had it, and it'll tell me if that's a fast or slow moving product and if it's optimized or not. Now, one of the things you can see here is that this is bin locations really designed for pallets, but that might not be how you have yours set up, which is great. So what we can do is we can have pallets. You could have multiple pallets per bin. You could have boxes within bin locations, or even small little pick boxes. It really is entirely up to you how this is designed. And we designed this in a way which allows us to change it quickly to suit however your system is designed. So next, as well as being able to see what is in a specific bin location in the warehouse, as well as being able to look to optimize your bins and your fast and slow moving stock, as well as being able to ensure that your warehouse team can pick efficiently, we also want to be able to say that perhaps for a specific bin location, I can see exactly what's been in there in the past. This might be useful if you want specific products to go in specific locations. So here, for example, actually you can see this specific bin has had quite a lot of products in it over the time, and you can see the movements from it as well, in and out. If there's been a quarantine item, you can record that as well, and that's useful if you can only put quarantine items in quarantine bins, for example. We can help with that. If you don't have an image, that's fine. This is just an example of what you can do. So you absolutely don't need a warehouse image. It's when you've got one or not. Also, we can start to look at quality. So this works around the quarantine, really, and the principle of managing quarantine stock. So on this sheet here, what we can see is we can see details of all the current items that we've got in our warehouse which are relating or are in quarantine. So that could be because they've yet to be checked and approved, or it could be because we know that there's a damage issue or a fault, or it's not being purchased perhaps, or again, whatever really you wish to record this as. So what can we do here? Well, firstly, I guess we can say, okay, well, we can see that there are 2 items that are damaged in the warehouse. Let's have a look and see what they are. So now we can see the 2 items that are damaged and where they're from and which suppliers have supplied them. Okay, let's look at that. So if we actually just take one supplier, so this is one supplier that we're looking at, we can see that damaged and general quarantine reason, in other words, there isn't one. But we can also see that actually over time, we've received a fair few items that would easily fall into the quarantine or damaged issue. So this becomes useful. You can see here as well that potentially over the next week, we're going to receive up to 4 new deliveries from this supplier, which are faulty, down to maybe 1. But the chances are we're going to have 1 a day deliveries from one supplier, which will be quarantined. So now what we can do is speak with this supplier and start talking about if we've got quality issues and provide evidence to show what we can do about it. Further to this, if we wanted, the other thing we can start to do is use inbuilt Power BI AI. So here what I'm doing is I'm saying what influences stock to be quarantine. So there's a good chance it's going to go into quarantine if this is the product, or if this is the product group even. And I could drill into more and more detail if I wanted. Now, out of the box, what you see is what you can have, but of course, all of this can be tailored to suit you further. So let's crack on and talk about what we are doing with this. So first thing to say is this is easy to implement and easy to use. Hopefully just seeing that you can see you can drill around and use the system pretty quickly and pretty effectively. So timeline. So to implement this system, it's a 4-5 week, and that's elapsed time. So week 1, sort the commercials, understand the ERP system, ensure we can connect, ensure we can build. Weeks 2 to 3, we'll work with you to design the 3D model. If you've got AutoCAD drawings already of your warehouse or similar, fantastic, we'll use them. If not, we'll build them for you. We'll then integrate it with your ERP or warehousing system, and we'll begin that testing process. Week 4, we'll have tested it, we'll have delivered training, and in effect, your solution will be live. And week 5, we're into business as usual. We hand over to customer success, and you're on your way. You've got a working solution. You might be asking, well, does it work with? So here's a quick summary of systems that we have worked with. So the SAGEs, of which there are many. Dynamics NAV, Dynamics Business Central, Dynamics 365, SAP, anything SQL based, Google Cloud, Free Agent, even Kaizen Tree, which is a manufacturing process system, Infor, and more. Ultimately, if we can connect to it, we can work with it, and Power BI can pretty much connect to whatever you've got. Right, so questions. How complicated is this to set up? It's relatively simple. There's a few key things we need. One is the 3D warehousing. So we talked about that and how we can work with you to get that resolved. That's pretty easy. In terms of time, it's days. It's days. It's not weeks. The reason why we say it's a 5-week period is we know there's going to be a bit of back and forth, and we want to make sure that works effectively. Thanks for that. Another one, how good does the data have to be? That's an interesting one. So for us, actually, so there is an argument to say don't do it until the data is accurate, but if that's the statement, it'll never be accurate, it'll never be done. In our experience, actually, by implementing this, what we start to see is that businesses can make sure, it gives them an impetus to make sure the data is there. So do we have the right products in the right bins? Well, let's double check and see what we've got and correct it. So in actual fact, our experience is the data doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, to be fair, by having it not perfect, we then ensure with solutions like this, we shine a light on it and make it better, which is great. In terms of a question there, can it connect to any system? We've seen potential ones there. So yeah, loads. And you know, what we'd say is if you're thinking, yes, but can you do it? Well, we'll go through and show you and do like a proof of value to make sure we can connect. We'll never commit to a system or working with you unless we're sure it can happen. That's a lesson that we've learned over time. Another one, in terms of, so the average 5-week deal, what type of costs? So what we'll do is, thanks for asking that, separately, and we'll get in touch and go through what that looks like, if that's all right with you. Others, does it just work with cloud or on-prem? Both. So depending upon the system that you've got, depends upon how we connect, for sure. But from an end user perspective or from a general day-to-day management perspective, it works exactly the same way. And we've got experience of doing both. What if you don't have a 3D warehousing model or design? Like I say, it's absolutely not a problem. As part of the 5-week implementation, we'll make sure that's done and work with you on that. Do you need to be a Power BI expert? No, absolutely not. You'll see, hopefully, from how we've designed the tool, that we make it as easy to use as possible. We don't want this to be difficult, and we want everybody to be able to use it. Is there a limit to data volumes and users? Technically, yes. Technically, there are limits to data volumes, but we work with some large organizations and have yet to hit them. There are also ways around data volumes and limits, which is easy to do. Is it just Power BI subscription? It depends how we do it. So there for sure is a Power BI subscription that's required. And again, what we'll do is individually, we'll speak with you all and we can cover that off. Last one's, how do I find out about pricing? So that is, we'll get in touch and we'll go through pricing specific for you. And what happens next. So if you've If what you've seen is something that's of interest, next step, we'll get in touch, or you get in touch, and we will go through in a little bit more detail. We'll show you exactly how this works, and we'll plan a tailored rollout over a 5-week period. So thanks very much for attending. I do appreciate it's early on a Thursday, but we were super keen to have it earlier on in the day and also get through it within the 30 minutes. We know everybody's time is really precious. We'll speak to you soon, I do hope, and thanks again for attending this webinar. Bye-bye.